I want to show a piece of tape here that I think is instructive because last week on the show I started off by saying why this visceral hatred of the health care reform from the right wing. I really couldn't understand it. Okay. And I want to show you this tape. You may have seen this, but I hope this goes viral if it hasn't already because I think it says a lot. This is a Parkinson's sufferer who sat down.
Right, I saw
you saw this?
Awful.
He sat down in front of a rally of people who were protesting the health care reform.
If you're looking for a handout, you're in the wrong end of town. Nothing for free over here. You have to work for everything you get. Good to know.
No, I'll pay for this guy. Here we go. Start a pot. I'll pay for you. I don't want a handout. I tried. No, I'll decide when to give you one. There, there's another one. There you go.
You love a communist.
No more handout.
See, I think I got my answer. It's welfare, isn't it? That's the problem, is that a lot of people think that giving health care to people who can't afford it is just another handout. That's what the guy said, throwing monies at him like he was a stripper.
I think
here's a one, you loafer. Let's get back to the human part of it. This guy with Parkinson's disease sits down in front of people and they treat him with scorn. Yeah. It seems to say a lot because that's reality sitting down in front of them. And they don't like reality. You know, their view of American medicine is what they watch on TV. Like, you ever watch House or Grey's Anatomy? It's like 10 or 12 doctors for just you. All they do is treat you, and then they go home and fuck each other and think about you. That's the fantasy. But this guy with... That was the reality. Please, I know why you're happy, because in less than 48 hours, they say we might finally have health care reform in this country, so enjoy your last weekend of freedom, Comrade Sheeple. But the people, you know, on the inside, with the inside information, say it does look good for the Democrats because, you know, they have this little inside stuff. They found out Nancy Pelosi called her plastic surgeon to ask if her smile would be ready by Sunday. So, that's the big day. They're going to vote on Sunday. And if Nancy Pelosi gets her way and the Democrats get the votes, by this time next week, we will be living in a world where Americans can buy health insurance from an insurance company. Like now. I mean, this is what makes it so crazy, is that the Republicans act like the whole world is changing. It's not that big a deal. It's still capitalism, still for-profit, still insurance companies. Matt Drudge had up on his site calling the vote Bloody Sunday. Lock the doors, get your kids in the hurricane cellar. The Negro is coming for your HMO. Bloody Sunday. I mean, these people are insane. There is a congressman from Iowa, Republican Steve King. He said on the floor the other day, they intend to vote on the Sabbath during Lent to take away the liberty that we have right from God. And then he pointed to Nancy Pelosi and said, witch! She's a witch! Wait, it gets worse. There's a congressman from Georgia named Paul Braun. He said, I'm not making this up, he said, if Obamacare passes, that insurance card in your wallet is going to be as worthless as the Confederate dollar after the Great War of Yankee Aggression. I'm not making this up. This is the other day. This is 2010. The Great War of Yankee Aggression. Okay, is it okay now to call Republicans a bunch of crazy crackers? Is that okay now after that comment? I'm just... Wow. The Great War of Yankee Aggression. Scarlett? I mean, how stupid is it when people say, oh, yeah, that's all we need, the federal government telling Detroit how to make cars or Wells Fargo how to run a bank. You want them to look like the post office? Yeah, actually. You mean the place that takes a note in my hand on L.A. on Monday and gives it to my sister in New Jersey on Wednesday for 42 cents? Well, let me be the first to say, I would be thrilled if America's healthcare system was anywhere near as functional as the post office. Truth is, recent years have made me much more wary of government doing the opposite, of stepping aside and letting unregulated private enterprise run things it is plainly too greedy to trust with, like Wall Street, like rebuilding Iraq, like the way Republicans always frame the healthcare debate by saying healthcare decisions should be made by doctors and patients, not government bureaucrats, leaving out the fact that health decisions aren't made by doctors, patients, or bureaucrats. They're made by insurance companies. Insurance companies, which are a lot like hospital gowns. Chances are your ass isn't covered. And finally, new rule, stop calling the Tea Party phenomenon a movement. To be a real political movement, you have to, well, move towards some specific legislative goal. The suffrage movement, for example, gained voting rights for women. The civil rights movement outlawed discrimination against blacks. And the gay rights movement brought us the Winter Olympics. But the teabaggers, they're not a movement. They're a cult. And I'm going to prove it. Now, during the break, I took my usual cross-country road trip with Nadia and the octuplets, and... and everywhere we stopped along the way, diners, truck stops, medical marijuana dispensaries, people wanted to talk about the teabaggers and know some basic things about them, like who's their dentist and why do they wear flannel in the summer? But if you look at any cult, whether it be the Hale-Bopp Comet people, the Scientologists, or Oprah's book club, you'll find several common elements, the primary one being cult members are taught to quickly withdraw into the group and distrust the outside world. Teabaggers distrust everything. They think everyone's coming for their guns and they shouldn't pay taxes. They're like Wesley Snipes crossed with a fat old white guy who runs a landfill. Folks, no one is coming for your guns, your Bibles, or your fishing poles. And that's not a monster under your bed. It's the ab lounger you bought last year and never used. Cults are also always driven by some ridiculous, unattainable goal, like a fiery apocalypse ringing in paradise, or deficit reduction by way of giant tax cuts. Now, you know someone has fallen into a cult if you see these signs. 1, cults have their own vocabulary. Now, I don't speak shit kicker, but I know that in their world, freedom means guns, diplomacy means weakness, elitist means reader, and socialist means black. 2, cults tend to populate from within, encouraging members to have huge broods of children and to give them strange names like Moonbeam and Trig. And 3, cult members always attribute all their problems to one simple explanation. Now, here's an amazing statistic. In a recent poll, almost 90% of teabaggers said that they thought taxes had either gone up or stayed the same under Obama. Only 2% thought they went down. But the reality is, taxes have gone down. For 95% of working families, taxes went down. Think about that. Only 2% of the people in a movement about taxes named after a tax revolt have the slightest idea what's going on with taxes. So it would be easy to just mock, except that those who fall under the control of cults aren't necessarily weirdos, they're victims. And we shouldn't forget that these people are our relatives, our neighbors, and the folks at the next table in the restaurant. especially if that restaurant is Hooters and it's Dollar Wing Wednesday.